Humphrey, Ukraine is hitting refineries in Siberia, Russian warships have vanished from the Mediterranean, and China is demanding Russian gas for only $50. How does that make sense?
Mr. President, it is not a collapse. It is merely strategic downsizing accompanied by highly competitive wholesale pricing.
When your No Limits friends start saying final offer, the friendship has officially entered liquidation.
Ukraine has intensified long-range drone strikes against Russia's military logistics and energy infrastructure. In July, a Ukrainian drone reportedly traveled more than 2,500 kilometers to hit the Omsk refinery, Russia's largest. Repeated attacks have also pressured fuel supplies, naval operations and air bases housing aging strategic bombers that Russia cannot easily replace. Meanwhile, Moscow's proposed Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline remains stalled over price and financing, with reports that Beijing is demanding terms far below Russia's traditional export prices. Russia retains major military and nuclear capabilities, but the war is increasingly testing both its industrial resilience and its bargaining power.
I'm trying to understand the strategic picture, Humphrey. Ukraine is taking relatively cheap drones, flying them across half a continent and setting fire to the infrastructure that funds Russia's war. Refineries, tankers, air bases, and now the largest refinery in Russia, all the way out in Omsk. Isn't Siberia supposed to be where you move things to keep them safe?
Traditionally, yes, Mr. President. Siberia has performed admirably as Russia's geographical insurance policy. Extremely large, inconveniently cold, and situated at a reassuring distance from everyone else's weapons. Unfortunately, the modern unmanned aerial vehicle has no appreciation for tradition, climate, or the psychological comfort of distance.
Russia spent a century using Siberia as the world's biggest do not disturb sign. Ukraine sent it a plywood drone with notifications turned on.
But one drone doesn't destroy an economy.
Quite so. Nor does one damaged refinery constitute the collapse of a petroleum industry. Refineries can be repaired, production can be rerouted, official statistics can be reclassified, and queues at petrol stations can be described as spontaneous demonstrations of consumer confidence.
The trouble is, Jim, Ukraine keeps sending reminders. You repair the refinery, another drone arrives. You move the bomber, another drone finds the new address. At this point, Russia's maintenance schedule is being managed from Kiev.
And the bombers really are difficult to replace?
The 295 and 222M families are, in administrative terms, heritage assets. They were designed by the Soviet Union, built largely during the Soviet Union, and are now maintained through the traditional Russian aerospace technique of persuading several old aircraft to donate enough organs to keep one slightly less old aircraft alive.
A strategic bomber fleet held together by cannibalism. Very on brand for the empire.
So Ukraine is reducing Russia's ability to launch long-range attacks?
Reducing, yes. Eliminating, no. Russia still possesses tactical aircraft, land-based missiles, naval launch platforms, large drone inventories, and of course a nuclear arsenal capable of ending any policy discussion rather abruptly. It also continues to inflict terrible damage on Ukraine. One must not confuse an increasingly expensive war with an already lost war.
True, Russia can still hurt Ukraine badly. It just has to spend more, fly farther, and explain more often why everything is proceeding according to plan.
What about the Navy? The report says there were no Russian warships left in the Mediterranean.
Temporarily no tracked combat ships, Mr. President. A subtle but important distinction. A fleet may be absent without being defeated, just as a minister may be unavailable without being sober. Russia can redeploy vessels in the future. Nevertheless, moving ships away from threatened ports is generally regarded as prudent force preservation.
Also known as winning the naval battle by removing the Navy.
And all of this is being done with drones?
Drones, missiles, intelligence, satellite communications, Western financing, local ingenuity, and an industrial supply chain of impressively ambiguous nationality. Ukraine's success is not the triumph of one miraculous gadget. It is the product of an entire network, much of it supported by NATO countries, and much of the commercial hardware originating from factories in China.
China? But China is Russia's most important strategic partner.
Indeed. China buys Russian energy, sells components into global markets, provides Moscow with diplomatic breathing room, and carefully avoids becoming responsible for the breathing. It is a relationship of profound strategic intimacy conducted at an exquisitely calculated commercial distance.
Beijing sells the parts that help both sides keep fighting, buys the discounted oil created by the fighting, and then offers to build the peace when everyone is exhausted. That isn't neutrality, Jim. That's vertical integration.
So China benefits whether Russia advances or retreats?
Within limits. Beijing does not want a powerful Russia capable of dictating terms in Central Asia or energy markets, nor does it want a disintegrating nuclear state spilling instability across a shared border. The ideal outcome is a Russia strong enough to distract the West, stable enough to deliver raw materials, and weak enough to read the price printed by the customer.
Weak, useful, and house-trained. The perfect no-limits partner, provided it stays within the credit limit.
Which brings us to this gas pipeline. Russia used to sell gas to Europe at premium prices. Now reports say China wants to pay roughly 1/5 of what it currently pays through Power of Siberia 1. That's not a negotiation. That's a garage sale.
It is a textbook example of market-based friendship. Moscow urgently requires a replacement customer for the European market. Beijing, meanwhile, possesses alternative suppliers, LNG terminals, domestic production, and, most importantly, time. When one party has gas and the other has options, the party with the options generally writes the poetry of partnership and the small print of the contract. The reported $50 figure may be an opening position rather than a final settlement, but the message is unmistakable. Declarations of eternal friendship do not constitute a take-or-pay agreement. Geopolitical sympathy is complementary. Pipeline finance is not.
Putin brought Beijing a strategic partnership. Beijing took out a calculator and asked whether delivery was included.
Does that mean China thinks Putin is finished?
Not necessarily. States do not need to predict a leader's downfall when they can price the risk of his weakness. President Putin retains extensive control over the security apparatus, the media, and the political system. Historical comparisons with 1905, 1917, or the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan are intellectually stimulating, but history is not a railway timetable. Military setbacks can produce revolution, reform, repression, or merely a more elaborate victory parade.
In Russia, a failed war does not automatically remove the leader. Sometimes it merely removes everyone allowed to call it a failed war.
But someone eventually has to carry the blame.
Certainly. The essential question is whether responsibility travels upward to the author of the policy or downward to the generals, oligarchs, procurement officials, regional governors, and any unfortunate colonel discovered standing near a damaged refinery. Authoritarian accountability is rather like gravity, Mr. President. Officially, it points downward.
Until the ceiling falls in.
So Russia isn't necessarily collapsing, Ukraine hasn't necessarily won, and China isn't necessarily abandoning Putin. But every destroyed refinery, damaged bomber, and delayed gas contract makes Russia weaker, and China's offer lower?
An admirably concise summary. Ukraine is attempting to convert cheap technology into strategic attrition. Russia is attempting to convert endurance into eventual leverage. The West is attempting to convert financial and technological support into a favorable settlement, and China is attempting to convert everyone else's exhaustion into a long-term supply contract.
Russia still has nuclear weapons, Jim. What it no longer has is a preferred customer discount.
Because Russia gets the discount?
No, Jim, Russia is the discount.